We're building a future where workers stand tall, where rights are respected and justice for all.
My name is Jiska Gojowczyk, and I'm a researcher at the think tank SÜDWIND-Institut in Bonn. And I will be moderating this session, during which I will ask representatives from two different fashion production contexts who work with workers and with trade unions. What does fashioning a just transition mean for you as people working in the production context? And what issues should we in Germany push forward from your perspective? What demands should we raise? I am very happy that here in the digital space, I am with Armin, Sestic and Andriko, Otang, two real experts when it comes to labor rights in the garment industry. And let me introduce both of them to you. Armin Sestic has been a passionate civil society activist for more than a decade and is associated with the organization ZORA, which works for an open and inclusive society in Bosnia and Herzegovina. He is particularly concerned about workers' rights in the clothing industry. Armin is a member of the European Lobby and Advocacy Committee of the Clean Clothes Campaign Network. And I also welcome Andriko, Otang. He's executive director of the Indonesian Trade Union Rights Center, which is an NGO that closely cooperates with the Indonesian trade unions to improve working and living conditions in sectors such as garments, footwear, and palm oil. TURC is an established member of the Asian Clean Clothes Campaign structures. As a lawyer by profession, Otang has been a strong voice promoting better labor laws also for the informal sector since more than a decade. He is also teaching at the Faculty of Law of the Catholic University of Atmaya. I welcome both of you. It is really great that you take the time to talk to us today.
So, hello everyone. As presented, I'm Armin coming from ZORA, based in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we've been working for 7 years with garment workers and trade unions on labor rights. We're also part of the Clean Clothes campaign. Today, I want to share some of the key facts from the Western Balkan region. I will be pointing out the Western Balkans facts rather than only Bosnia and Herzegovina fact, because we have just updated the fact sheet for Western Balkans, for all 6 countries of Western Balkans, and we are part of this small, unofficial, regional body or regional coalition of organizations in Western Balkans who are fighting for the decent work in this region. So, those facts in the Western Balkans regions that frame how we think about just transition, what it means in a context like ours, where basically rights are often not respected. So as you can see in this first slide, employment, how many people are working in the Western Balkans region. So in the Western Balkans, it has around 16.8 million people, but only about 5.3 million are employed. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, we are split between 2 entities. I wouldn't say split. That's we constitute of 2 entities: the Federation and Republika Srpska, with a combined employed population of 840,000 people. These numbers are crucial to understand because many of these workers, especially in the garment sector, are vulnerable to exploitation, low wages, and unsafe working conditions. Just transition for us starts with protecting these existing jobs, ensuring they are dignified. Can I have a next two? Yes. So what about the living wage in the region? So one of the most urgent challenges is the lack of recognized living wage. Current minimum wages covers only about a third to half of what is actually needed to survive and support a family. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, the living wage is estimated 920 euros, while the minimum wage is 460 euros. This gap is massive and it forces workers to live in poverty. Without tackling this, there can be no just transition. Just to a quick update, this 460 euros minimum wage to 500 just started from January this year, and it was 315 euros in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it was less than 33% of the minimum wage was left less than 33% of the living wage. So can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So about the working hours, yes. Workers in Western Balkans, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, work significantly longer hours than EU average. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, people work over 41 hours per week, often holding multiple jobs just to make an ends meet. So this raises serious questions about the quality of life and long-term sustainability. A just transition here means reducing overwork, improving wages, and allowing people to live, not just to survive. Next slide, please. Yes, I already spoke in regards to the minimum wage and living wage ratio. In 2024, the average minimum wage in the region is 386 euros. While Montenegro has made progressive steps, raising its minimum to 450, with plans to increase it to 600 or 800. Based on education, most countries, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, lag behind. Workers are demanding dignity and fairness, not only in environmental terms, but also economically. That is central to just transition. Okay, so can we go to the workplace conditions and inspection slide, please? Yes. Who controls workplace conditions? Unfortunately, labor inspectorates are severely understaffed. One inspector for every 10,000 workers. This means violations go unchecked and garment workers, mostly women, are left to fend for themselves. Strengthening the enforcement mechanism is a key. Civil society unions and international allies must push governments to invest in workplace safety and accountability. So yes, this slide 7 is related to work-related deaths. So an average of 3 work-related fatalities per 100,000 workers annually is reported, but we believe the real number is higher. Every week 2 workers die in the region, many in construction, agriculture, and yes, in garment factories a long time ago, but still, yes, it happened. Just transition means preventing these deaths to better laws, stronger inspections, and corporate accountability. This cannot wait. So as to finish this first presentation, all these facts about Bosnia and Herzegovina and Western Balkans region show that just transition in our region means decent work first, living wages, safe workplaces, and workers' rights. So we can talk about transitioning industry without addressing the systematic exploitation happening now. So I call on CCC members in Germany and beyond, support our demand for living wages, pressure global brand sourcing from our region, and amplify the voices of our workers. Together we can ensure that fashion transition is truly just for everyone in the supply chain. I will provide with you some insight into my mind with several ideas that I wanted to share with you today. So when you mention the phrase just transition in the Western Balkans, many people don't think of climate or green energy. They think about brutal transition from socialism to capitalism in the 90s. The process for many of us was anything but just. It left behind shattered factories, the rise of oligarchs connected to nationalist elites, and the destruction of a once strong working and middle class. Trade unions were crushed. And what replaced it was often the worst kind of primitive neoliberal capitalism, unregulated and extractive. So in regards to energy transition, and just transition in regards to that, I would like to talk about energy transition and inequality. So fast forward to today, and again, we are told that we are in transition, totally understand, but this time energy transition. In Bosnia and Herzegovina and across the region, we've seen rising electricity prices. So this proportionately hits the poorest workers and families. And why are prices rising? Because more electricity needs to be exported to the EU to meet its growing demand for green energy, especially for electric vehicles and digital infrastructure. So let me ask you this. Is it truly just to shift to electric cars in Berlin or Paris if the result is an ordinary workers in Bosnia not being able to pay their electricity bill? If workers bear the cost of this transition while profits and benefits flow elsewhere, we must seriously question whether this is justice or simple green colonialism. So when it comes to my personal and our personal thoughts about the fast fashion and everything, just transition within the fast fashion, since the dawn of time, there have always been supply and demand, whether for commodities, narcotics, or cheap clothes. As long as demand is high, corporations will do everything possible to meet the demand with cheap supply, no matter what the human cost. So this is the reality for garments workers in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkans, but world as well. Exploited labor, poverty wages, unsafe conditions, all to produce clothes as cheaply and quickly as possible for a global market of insatiable consumption. So long as brands are driven by profit and consumers are driven by price and convenience, the system will keep exploiting workers to meet that demand. Just transition must confront this. It must challenge not only production methods, but consumption habits. It's not just about greening the supply chain, it's about slowing it down, making it fair, and valuing human dignity over speed and profit. So we must ask, whose transition is this? Who benefits and who pays the price? In the Western Balkans, we remember the last transition and we are cautious. We do not want to be sacrificed again for someone else's progress. So when we speak of just transition in fashion and energy, we must demand justice at every level. Global brands must pay fair wages. EU policies must protect workers in production countries, and civil society in Germany and Europe must amplify your voices to ensure this transition does not deepen inequality.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for Jiska, who already introduced me. So I'm Otang from the Trade Union Rights Center. I'm working for the Labor Rights NGO based in Jakarta, Indonesia. We also members of the Clean Clothes Campaign. We also play as a secretariat for the CCC National Coalitions in Indonesia. I've been working for 14 years in the organization, and we were supporting trade union in apparel industry, garment, textile, and shoe sectors, fighting for labor rights. We provide support to the trade union by conducting a capacity building program, such as evidence-based negotiation, and also conducting an action research for advocacy for the trade union. So, sorry. So, when we are talking about the topic of the just transition and its concept, actually, just transitions has begun to be familiar to the trade union in the upper sectors at the moment, but the challenge is that the discussions is still limited to involving the trade union leaders but has not yet been discussed actually to the factories union leaders or workers at the grassroots level. So I will be give a short background in terms of the transition discussions in Indonesia. In the early stages, many parties were viewed that just transition was only relevant to the trade union in the energy sectors. Because in the context of Indonesia, discussions on this topic began heat up when the Indonesian government was involved in the signing the Paris Agreement 2015, which focused on the climate change. The transition is understood as a way toward a more sustainable and environmentally friendly economy that must be carried out in a fair and inclusive manner for workers and affected communities. At that time, many trade unions were talking about plans to close coal-fired power plants in order to reduce emission and reduce the impact of the climate change. This means that it is very closely related to the environmental issues. So when just transitions began to be discussed by the trade union in apparel, it was quite difficult to find a direct linkage between environmental issues and workers' rights in the apparel sector. However, after studying further, we found out that talking about the transition is not only about the environmental aspect, but also workers and the affected communities. In the just transitions concept developed here and discussed here, uh, there are several foundations and pillars that must be considered in the transitions carried out by the businesses, including human rights, gender equality, and no one left behind principles. So for us, just transitions in the apparel sectors in Indonesia relevant to be monitored, considering that this sectors employs millions of workers, especially for women. And we highlight many intersectional aspects when we are talking about the just transitions and the fulfillment of the workers' rights. As we know, there are still many problems faced by the workers in the apparel sectors, especially related to the precarious work, low wages, and the issue of the rights to organize and collective bargaining. Several phenomena in Indonesia have triggered many companies to relocate their factories at this moment, from old industrial zone, which is in Banten province and Jakarta province, to the new industrial zone in the West Java and Central Java. So here's the triggered factors. First, the increasements of the minimum wage in the old industrial zone. In those areas, minimum wage is higher than the new industrial areas. Second is about the climate crisis related to the land subsidence. So land subsidence often triggered flooding in several regions in Indonesia. So it is considered to hinder production and cause losses by the employers. So they look for a new areas as a target areas for factory relocations with better environmental condition and lower minimum wage. However, these factory relocations often triggered problems such as sudden announcement and also not proper consultations process with the trade unions. And they are also not providing a proper severance payment in accordance with the provisions of the law. So another aspect in the transitions in the apparel sectors that we also monitor is the encouragements of brands to use more environmentally friendly machines and materials, such as recycled materials. So it requires high cost technology, of course, while there is no subsidy provided by the brands, or at least the brand is willing to pay a higher price. The result is labor costs will be suppressed by the suppliers. So in order to meet the brands required, they will push the labor cost, and it will be, of course, impacting the unfair transitions for the workers itself. So I would like to show to you about some pictures. As I said, that the climate crisis is also impacting workers at the moment in the apparel sectors industries. So this is a pictures of floods that occurred in several industrial areas of the apparel production centers spread across Banten and Central Java that occurred between 2022 and also 2024. So floods are currently an annual phenomenon and have often occurred in the recent times in several regions in Indonesia. So the impact on workers is quite various. For examples, like they can take a leave and also fully paid by the employers. So they can take a leave. The employers provide a leave for the workers and it's fully paid. The second, they also take it into account as a leave, but they are not paid at all. So the employer said this is a part of the no work, no pay. If you don't go work, and then no payment at all. And the other three scenarios that the employers mentions, if this flood is happening, they have to change their working days actually. So they are sometimes often working on the Saturday and also Sunday if there's a flooding on the weekend, for example, to achieving the target productions. So moreover, in the current economic situations or conditions of Indonesia, it's also challenging at the moment. For your informations, the purchasing power is now decreasing. The number of the middle class is in Indonesia has also experienced decreasing trend over the past over the past few years. So according to the trade union research, it's also showed that many workers are currently economically squeezed due to that. So they do not have enough income to meet the needs of their families, considering they only get the minimum wage at the moment. Although labor law states that the minimum wage is only intended for a single workers with 0 years of working period. But the reality is that the minimum wage is the effective wage they receive regardless of marital status and also the working period. So we believe that there are important values that must be accommodated in the just transitions concept to ensure that workers are not left behind within the transition. First, the right to organize and collective bargaining must be ensured. Thus, labor union can be involved in formulating policies, both with the state and also with the employers regarding discussions on transition plans that provide protection to workers and also the communities. Second, affected workers must receive social protections, especially in terms of social security, safe working condition in terms of occupational health and safety, and also access to assistance by the trade union if there's any problems in the middle of the process. So the third point that we also would like to address is about the skills development for the workers through reskilling and also upskilling is an element that must not be left out in our discussions, because workers who do not have the job security at the moment must be provided with the new skills to be able to survive in the job market, especially those related to the technology. Because moreover, especially in the shoe sectors, automatizations has begun in the shoe industries, although it is not yet massive at the moment, but workers must be able to improve their skills to ensure that they are still relevant in the job market. So for the conclusions, just transitions in the apparel sectors in Indonesia, it should be monitored and it is relevant to be monitored. And trade union must be given recognition and a good place to be involved and have their voices heard in determining what transitions policies would be, both at the national level until the factories level. Thank you. It's really, really tough and challenging situations over the couple of months over the couple of months after the US government's mentions about it. One for sure that I know here in Indonesia, for the organizations like labor rights organizations, NGO, even trade union itself, who got supported international international solidarity funds from the European or even from the US, it stopped suddenly, or even they just got some budget cuts at the moment. And as far as I understood, it just, even though there are still some funds actually to support the trade union movement here in Indonesia it's just guaranteed until 2025. For the 2026, I think it's a bit more challenging. It's difficult. No one can give a guarantee for the 2026. And of course, it will be impacting for the work for conducting advocacy and also union organizing. Because one of the most challenging here situations in Indonesia at the moment is actually about the right to organize and collective bargaining. Because due to the factors relocations, the trade union lose their members and they get some difficulties to establish a new trade union in the new industrial zone. So if there is no support from the NGOs because of the budget cuts, no funds at all, it definitely it will be a challenge situations for the trade union itself, actually, for organizing its members, strengthening their collective bargaining, because as we know, without members, they don't have any, strengthening, they don't have any positions actually to bargain with the employers. So now it's a bit challenging because in the new industrial zone, even though to get an recognitions to bargain with the employers, it's difficult at the moment. Even though to encourage workers actually to join the trade union, it's also challenging at the moment.
Some 2 months ago, I was on ELAC meeting in Brussels, and I had one short presentation about lobby and advocacy in the right-wing context for them. Because we have been living that kind of political agenda for the past 30 years, and I couldn't believe that the things could change so fast in 2 or 3 months, so that all of those things that I already said to them are becoming your new reality. So it's really frightening to see all of those things changing so fast, so dramatically, so rapidly. So yeah, it affects every single person here. We are especially bonded with the German economy, Bosnia and Herzegovina and West Balkans region in general. So when it comes to if you have an issues in regards to the economy, our workers, our production, our economy has issues as well. So it's quite interconnected. In general, we are seeing more and more issues regarding all of these geopolitical things, and we have an additional problem that we are still bonded with this Dayton Peace Agreement insane jacket that we already have on. So we still haven't been able to process all of those things that happened 30 years ago in Bosnia, but also in the region. So we are burdened by 2 or 3 several things at the same time. So it is quite hard. When I said and asked that you share those things about Berlin process and instrument for pre-accession assistance and possibilities for German organizations to include in lobby and advocacy for those 2 things, it is important that you do not forget us. It is important that you continue your work. It is important. It will be really hard for you to work in this new now. It will be really, really hard because you probably won't have people on the other side totally ready to listen. You already see this with this omnibus for the CSDDD, with maybe even with the German due diligence law in the future. Who knows? But it will be super hard for you. But I urge you to continue your work. I urge you to keep to work and keep to word flowing because I do believe that these times will pass, and that we, global South, global East, whatever you want to call us, we will appreciate, of course, your efforts of not being left alone in these difficult times for the entire globe. The Berlin Process is a diplomatic and economic initiative started by Germany in 2014 to foster regional cooperation in the Western Balkans, to support reconciliation and pave the way for the EU integration. So it is not formally part of the EU accession process. It runs parallel and can significantly influence political and economic reforms in the region. So this process brings together EU governments, Western Balkan governments, EU institutions, and civil society, which includes us, of course, civil society, yes, and Germany plays a leading role within this Berlin process. So this could make your voice particularly powerful within that process. So how the process works? The Berlin process has flexibility. It has no central coordination and relies on summits and sectoral meetings involving prime minister, EU bodies, and civil society. There is a space here for advocacy, especially from the German CCC members and civil society, to push for labor rights, just transition, and decent work agenda items at these summits. Because as for until now, we never had anything similar to this agenda on the topic of the Berlin process. We were talking about, reconciliation, digital agenda, opening borders for market, etc., but they have never ever talked about decent work in Western Balkans, and it should be a thing that you can influence German government or people who are behind that process to put that on the table. That's the first thing. The second thing is we have one key EU mechanism for the Western Balkans and for each and every country. It is called Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance. So this is the EU primary funding tool to support candidate and potential candidate countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina. It funds economic, political, and social reforms with the goal aligning us to EU values and standards. So the general objective of IPA is to help countries implement reforms aligned to EU values. So this includes social rights, decent work. It should include, in practice, labor rights often get less attention or funding, or none at all. They are not all mentioned as potential funding principle of the instrument of pre-accession. Not at all. You need to talk about women's rights in order to get funding for the women workers in factories. You cannot talk about women workers. You will not get funding in regards to this EU money. So we are talking about two things. This instrument for pre-accession will be newly created for the next period of 4 or 5 years, I think next year. So if and when we need your help to write to your MPs or something like that, in EU Parliament for them to consider or reconsider decent work to be part of the funding principles of the European Union to this enlargement process that we are having. As I said, so advocate within the Berlin process for the inclusion of labor rights and just transition on the agenda, push for an instrument of peace, instrument of pre-accession funds to support projects focused on labor rights, living wages, and decent work in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkans, and support civil society monitoring on how funds are used, ensuring transparency and accountability. So those are two concrete things that you could help us when it comes to lobbying and advocacy. And of course, if some concrete thing arises, we know the proper channels to address it when it comes to German CCC. Thank you.
At least I have one list. The discussions about the HRDD and CS triple D is bring a hope for us actually in the productions countries. We do hope that there is like a new opportunity for the workers actually to get enforcements actually to challenge the brands, challenge the suppliers actually about the labor rights violations that they are doing in the production countries. And the union is willing actually to challenge that actually. And Chias Triple D is a hope. But then I think of just a month ago actually, I heard that there are efforts actually to weaken the Chias Triple D law in European Union. So I think we have to fight together actually to avoid that there is an efforts to weaken the HRDD and also the GS triple D law actually. This is for us actually for the trade union who are in the productions country. We do really hope that we can use this law, the GS triple D law, and to ensure that the brands and also the suppliers fulfill their responsibility. This is the opportunity, and I think this is the moment that we have uh, to strengthen our solidarity in the global north and the global south actually to fight back and ensure that there is no efforts actually to weaken this law actually. Thank you. Just a few days ago, the new presidency, they just released new revisions on the military law, actually. And in the military law mentioned that the military is allowed actually to be involved in the private sector, and they are to be allowed to to cover the areas of the object vital national. Means several industrial zone is a part of the object vital national, and means that if there's any trade union demonstration, if there's any strike, they will face a face head to head with the military. So this is the one that we are a bit afraid. Yeah, actually, we will go back a 2 decades ago in the new order era. Actually, that the military is head to head with the citizens, with the civil. So at the moment, for the future, I think it will be more challenging for the labor movement, for the trade union movement, actually, to do like a strike or mass demonstrations for fighting their rights, because now it's more strict, and the governments of Indonesia tends to promote social dialogue rather than a mass demonstration. But now uh, it's a bit difficult. We're talking about the social dialogue. You cannot have a fair dialogue without any power to the employers. The problems is now the power of the trade union, it's also got weakened because of the precarious work, because of the omnibus law. They are giving difficult to recruit new members due to the short-term contract. The workers would be afraid and even to join the trade union, and sometimes they also got intimidated by the employers to join the union. So without members, they cannot bargain equally with the employers. So this is the impact that the new presidency that we have, and I'm predict that several years later that we will be got some challenge. In this transitions process, of course, there will be less job, but we here in Indonesia, the governments of Indonesia believe there will be a new job actually. So, but for the trade union perspective, there should be that should be in the discussions on the table. What kind of jobs we predict that will be it will be raising at the moment? How to ensure that the skills of the workers matching up with the new job is raising up for the futures, and to avoid a mismatch, job mismatch, in that kind of terms. So that's why we try to push the governments actually to keep ensuring that the workers are able to get the skills development skills development in order to increase their skill, to the upskilling and also the reskilling, especially in terms of the digital and technology, because we predict that for the future the job related to the digital and technology is risen, and we have to ensure that the workers who are working in the apparel can also get adaptations on this new possible job. But then in the current situations, the job related to the digital technology and also the platform is raising, but then the new problem is coming because they are not cannot be adopted as a part of workers according to the labor law, Indonesia labor law. So they can be categorized as an informal sectors. So we predict that the informal sectors would be risen in terms of number for the future, and there will be another challenge that we have to face on.
I'm not that optimistic that this general transition will be good for the people, that is made for the people. I think that it will make more unemployed people, that it will leave more poor people and poor countries. So all of this technological shift, I don't see it going into the direction of some universal income and we all working less and AI and robots are working for us, but rather, only handful of you are reaping all of that wealth from a majority of poor and barely employed or unemployed people. So I do not see this situation as something that will eventually lead to a more equitable society in the future. Unfortunately, for some, yes, but for most of the people, it will not lead to that. In regards to the brands, I don't know, you name it, we have it. I don't know, we have Adidas, we have Nike, we had Prada, we had Burberry, we have Decathlon, we have some Swedish shoemakers here that we made documentary on. So we have a lot of smaller and bigger brands here present in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Western Balkans. As you are, of course, aware, we are at the gates of the European Union, so it is super easy for everybody to transport those goods into European Union, and super fast and super cheap, of course. In regards to the Berlin process, I tried to explain it, but I will try to do it again because it is important. It is a diplomatic process, diplomatic and economic initiative started by Germany in 2014. So EU member state governments of this Berlin process are Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, and Slovenia, Poland, and United Kingdom. So we have all of these countries as part of the Berlin process. They are talking with governments and representatives of Western Balkans, six Western Balkan countries, including, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, Kosovo, North Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, if I have missed it. So they gather them in one place every year to talk about the things like you will be small European Union before you enter European Union, something like that. You will have open borders for the goods to go. You will have lower taxes in between you and stuff like that. You will not have roaming when you walk around in those countries. Things like that. But never ever they talked about decent work in the Western Balkans. In the sense of the Western Balkans. EU countries and global North countries have always talked about cheap labor, not decent work, So that paradigm should shift, and you can influence that by finding, I know who is this representative. They had a meeting with Olaf Scholz last year and Ursula von der Leyen in Berlin for this Berlin process meeting. So you can, I don't know, send somebody a letter, wanting that decent work, living wage, and all those things should be a part of the Berlin Process initiative in Western Balkans. So you will be tackling not only one country, but 6 countries in the Western Balkans. If you need additional information, you can find it in the presentations, in narrative part, and the PDF presentation I sent. And of course, I'm always available for any and all clarifications. But if and when a call from ELAC comes that you support this idea to lobby on behalf of the Western Balkan countries for the inclusion of decent work in the Berlin Process initiative, just know that this is it, because I will, and I'm trying to push some sort of one-pager, for organizations of the CCC in all of these countries that are part of Berlin Process, to write to their governments, to include this in future negotiations and future talks with the governments from Western Balkans. I hope I made myself clear with this.